What's up YouTube, back here again with another video, and today we are going to continue and try to finish the hyper low build. Okay, now we'll go over real quick, we'll go over the rest of the parts that I'm going to use for this build, and then we'll get started working on it. Alright, so right off the bat, we still got the frame, right? Frame with the motors, we can move that out of the way. We are going to be using the Matek F405. Okay, this is just taken out of the package, haven't done anything yet. We got the included capacitor. We got the included rubber bumpers that we're going to use. The rubber bushing grommet jobbers, whatever you want to call them. We got the Matek VTX. Now, I already kind of pre-wired this a little bit. In the description will be the link on how to wire this Matek VTX and how I do it so you can control it with the smart control through your OSD. But you know, you got positive, negative, video is yellow, audio is green. Yes, I'm going to use audio here because this camera has audio. And then your smart control wires, again, we'll get into that. I'm going to use this stubby antenna, pagoda antenna. We got the Foxeer Arrow V3, which we're going to use. Alright, we got the XM Plus, the FrSky XM Plus receiver, and something new and special to me, we got these Speedix BL Heli 32 D-Shot 30 amp ESCs. Now we're going to be using D-Shot 1200 for this build. Now these ESCs do come like this with your piece of heat shrink. And you know, we'll play with the settings for these ESCs and all that good stuff later down the line. But for today, we're just going to build it up and get these motors spinning. I got an XT60 connector. You know, even though this is made to solder directly on, I don't like doing that. I like to have a little bit of wire for some give and for something to attach my capacitor to. I got a beeper here. We'll wire that up. This is just a, you know, a standard 5-volt beeper. And this is the wiring harness for the Arrow V3. Alright, let me clear the table and we'll get started with mounting the board and getting the ESCs started. Alright, so we're back. Now, what I like to start with is some of the more important things I feel like in order to get your builds going and in the air. So I'm going to get the flight controller mounted, make sure that that clears the space that needs to be in and everything is okay. Then we're going to look at the ESCs. We're going to look how the camera's going to fit, and VTX and receiver, kind of how everything's going to go. So I kind of already did a few of these little steps, some of the things that take some time. And what I was able to figure out was that the Matek comes with these, so I wanted to use these. So we got them kind of like this, right? And I'll show you how I did that. I got one left, so I got a black nylon screw, M3, and I put these in here. Now, the one thing you got to know about the rubber bobbins, these bushings, is they don't take much thread, okay? So you're going to have to cut whatever you're going to mess with or have really short screw. Let me get this in here. Sometimes this stuff is really hard to do on camera. Alright. I did all three of these really easy. Alright, so on this frame they give you enough space to mess with this. So there's the screw, stuck it through the hole. Now on this side, we're going to have to trim just a little bit. Now how you would know to trim that is if you would screw this on and see, you know, if it gets tight, you're fine. If it doesn't get tight, you're going to have to trim a little. I literally just got to knock off a little bit. That should do it. And we can screw this down. Alright, so now that's nice and tight. It doesn't spin, and it's going to work as far as for its dampening. Now, the flight controller, we gotta look for the arrow. Here's the arrow. So this is the front. So we're gonna wanna put it on like this. Now I'm just gonna use regular M3 nylon nuts when I finalize it, but for just to hold it in place, I'm gonna use these guys. Just gonna use 2 of them. Just kind of keep it in place. So that's that. Next step, all right, and I kind of already did this too, was you're gonna wanna see if your camera fits. Now, if you're going to use the Foxeer camera on this build, you're gonna have to do some altering, because the way the Foxeer cameras are, they have these shoulders, and I'll show you here. Let me get these screws out of the way, and I'll bring in, this is the Arrow V3 we're gonna use, but I'm gonna bring in two cameras unchanged. So here's the Monster V3. See this shoulder right here? Here's the run cam. Here's a run cam version. See how the shoulder is like this, and it's thin here? This shoulder actually was going to help hold up from sinking in here deep enough and actually rotating the right way. So what I had to do was grind these flat. So now we just have the shoulder in the center for the screw, and it's nice and flat along the sides. So when we go to put this in here like this, it's going to actually go in to the frame, and it'll fit, the frame will fit over it, because I was having problems with this fitting over top, and now it should. Yep. So now the camera moves in here freely. So that's that. That's why you got to check your fitment and placement of things. And I already tell you what, I already messed up a little bit. So now I'm looking at where I want to put my receiver, and I think I'm going to want to put my receiver under here. So what we're going to do is take a little piece of this 3M tape, and this is just stuff that will come over time, you know, from builds and things. You'll kind of develop your own style and kind of some things that you like to do to make things easier on yourself. You know, I know this receiver is already bound to my Taranis, and I know it works because I used it before. You know, but it is a risk. If you're going to bury these things, it is a risk for when they don't work or you have an issue to get to it. So the only thing I like to bury is maybe this receiver. Everything else I like to keep accessible. So we're going to stick this kind of over here so we can get a good stick like this, and then we're going to take the wires. That's why it's important to have your wires color coded the best you can. This way you don't have to look at the end result, you know what's what. Alright, now I'm hitting the SD card, so let's try this side. Now I can do this because the battery for this build is going to go on top. So, alright, let's see, make sure we get, okay, so that goes all the way down. That will work. So now my receiver is sticky taped and kind of pressured underneath there. See there? It's well insulated and protected, and it should stay there. Now we got the antennas. We'll mess with them later. And we got, there's our wires, which will come right here. That's why I moved them backwards, because the S-Bus rail is back here. So that's something to keep in mind too. If your S-Bus rail is up here, you would want the wires coming out this side. If it was over here, this side, you get where I'm going. So my S-Bus connector, 5-volt ground and S-Bus is right here. So now we got the wires right there, and we'll cut them and solder them on when we get to that step. Next thing, let's take a look at these ESCs and see what we're going to do. Now, these guys are really tiny, okay? So they're going to fit, I want to kind of, when I heat shrink this, then I'm going to tape it, and I'm going to tape it like right here. Now, typically what I would do is I would put some 3M tape on there, stick it down to this, get it all done, then wrap it in black tape. I'm not going to do that because the heat shrink has to go on, and I want the heat shrink to cover all the wires and stuff. So I'll show you what we're going to do. So I'm going to pick the placement, which is right here, and then I'm going to take my wires for the motors. I'm going to extend them a little bit. Boom, whack them there. So we got enough. Yeah. So we're going to strip this, and I'm going to do this same process for all 4. Strip these wires. Okay, now we're going to prep these pads. Now I don't have BL Heli the BL Heli suite yet. Okay, this is my first BL Heli 32 ESC, and I will be messing with that. But to get this build moving and get it in the air, we're going to stick to my old faithful method. So we're going to heat this up, you know, pre-tin this, make sure the heat gets all through the pads. We're going to tin these wires, make sure they're nice and prepped, make sure the heat goes through and the solder gets through the whole thing. Then we're going to take this kind of over here, and I need my tweezers. Alright, and now I always solder them first directly and straight. Alright. And then we'll switch them around once we figure out which ones need to be switched around. Alright, so then we got some good solder joints there. And our AC is going to go somewhere here when we're all said and done. Exactly where we're going to put it. The next step we're going to do is we're going to cut off this connector. I'm just going to cut it off for now. I don't need it. I'm going to take the heat shrink. Alright, we're going to slip this over. I'm just slipping it over the end of the wires. And we're going to slip it down into place. Now we're not going to shrink this because we got to check the motor direction. Again, you could do this in the suite, and that would probably be easier, but I don't have that yet, and I'm working on it. Stuff is all very difficult. Alright, so there we go. We're going to leave it like that, and we'll shrink that and put this into place when we get, after we check orientation and everything, so I can slide it up, change the wires, and finalize that when we get to it. Alright, so that'll wrap up part 2. Come back and check out part 3. We'll get all the ESCs on and wrap it up. Thanks for watching.